Welcome to the latest episode of the Claus Corner. Today's guest is a world-recognized singer and songwriter in the genres of rock, and hardcore punk. He is also an instrumentalist, live performance artist, producer, photographer, artist, and writer. His bands include Bad Brains, Common Thread, Uprising, and Fireburn. His solo work includes Ghetto Folk, Deeper Meaning, Rod of Iron, and Meltdown. So without further ado, please welcome the extremely talented Israel Joseph to the Claus Corner. Israel, how are you?
Hey, Rich. Thank you so much for that great intro. I'm doing well. How are you, man?
I am doing well.
I thought Black and White was on the same energy that we was just going to finally be this united America that was going to rise. But where the voices were coming from was above.
Okay.
You understand? It wasn't coming from below, bro. No one hated. Everyone was loved. But like Donald Trump or like this kind of activity where you're telling people what to think, these people behind the scenes couldn't see this happening too much. They could allow a Lenny Kravitz. They could allow a Living Color. They could allow here and there. We got to put this up there, this, that. But most of it has to look like Pearl Jam.
Mm-hmm.
And so we, unfortunately, were one of the ones that they said we're not going to be one of the display models in the you can't say we don't have black acts. Because here's this display, here's that display, and here's that display. Never mind, the entire display looks like one way. There's that one, that one, that one. So you can't say that.
Which is sad because every hardcore documentary I watched, every band says I was influenced by the Bad Brains. The Bad Brains are my favorite band. I had 3 guests on. I said John Joseph, Mystic Bowie, and another guest. Who's your biggest influence? Bad Brains. Bad Brains. I mean, that's all I ever hear. So they were the band.
They're not influenced. Yeah, they're not the ones who are fighting it.
Yeah.
John Joseph and the audience, hardcore punk audience, white kids are not the ones fighting what we're talking about.
Yeah,
it is the old dudes in the background with the money that's like, I'm not going to support that if you support that. The same thing they do on TV. The producers are being, of the CNN and all, MSNBC, are being led by the dudes with the money. If they don't want to see certain things being done, now they will put out a George Floyd because we have the internet now, right? It's blew up all over the internet. But before the internet, we had no video with the exception of Rodney King. And that blew up because every video started going around on the underground. And so when there is no video, there is no talk about it on TV because every day black kids are getting killed. Every day white kids are getting let go for minor infractions, right? Every day, not every day, but every time you see the mass shootings, and it's a Hispanic or Black, like say what happened in Uvalde, Texas, or what happened with, someplace, I can't think of an instance now, but usually that suspect is going to end up dead. But when you have a Dylan Roof walk into a church and shoot 9 people, he gets taken alive, taken to Burger King, sat for a meal, and then taken to jail. When you have the Las Vegas shooter shooting 57 people, biggest terrorist act we had, and then he gets taken alive. When we have the recent shooter, guy dressed up as a woman here, skinny face, I forget his name, he shot people up, he gets taken alive. When we got the guy here on trial, he just got found guilty, he got taken. When we have the Batman shooter, he got taken alive.
Yeah.
Charles Manson got taken alive. You see, black people get shot dead. They accuse me of being a terrorist, that's all it takes. They're going to shoot me. But if a white guy goes out and shoots 57 people, they're going to say, hands up, freeze. Why? Because this goes back to the history of America. Black people don't have rights that all of these older type and money types feel like they have to observe. You have to understand, I'm about to get serious on this interview, and a lot of people are going to be like, Talk about music. But I'm sorry, people.
We'll get back to music.
Yes, America is built on rights. And at one point, only white guys with land had rights. White guys without land did not have white rights. And white women never had rights. And all other races never had rights. That is how the Constitution is written. White guys with land have rights. Freedom of speech, freedom of order. We have changed it since then. We've done amendments to the Constitution to annul all that 1/5 clause where Black people like me are considered 1/5 of a man. That's less than the worth of a cow in the Constitution. I just sound like Malcolm X talking, right? He's talking about the same thing, but I'm sorry, man. I love. Come on, man.
You know what?
Don't kill me, man. I love y'all, man. I'm just trying to talk to you about something. Don't kill me, man, please.
Look, you might know who was saying this like 20, 25 years ago? George Carlin. I mean, he's my favorite comedian of all time. But if you go back to his specials, and I love, this is what somebody said about his specials, and I agree with it. If you just read his words on paper, it's an informative, intelligent essay. When he gets up on stage, he makes it funny, but he said exactly what you, we're friends on Facebook. I'm going to send you the clip. He said exactly, almost verbatim what you're saying. So it's just, and he said that, I mean, I know it's just been going
on. Because I learned this. I didn't learn about racism from Black people.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's just so sad.
Can I say that again? I say that again?
Go ahead.
I learned about racism from Black people. I learned about racism from white Americans. I learned the difference and the struggle and what was really going on from the perspective of white Americans. And I learned who I am from the perspective of Black people. Yeah. But Black people, for the most part, are not out there rebelling against the system, right? So you have certain groups of people who do, but for the most part, you find a lot of hippies and free-minded thinking white folks who are rebelling against the system, and they'll tell you why, as a Black person, you're supposed to be rebelling against the system.
Yeah, well, you know, I say this all the time, and like I can't imagine why anybody would want to be racist, because first of all, there's so many great Black musicians. I'm just sticking with music right now, and most of the music that people like came from those Black musicians. But second of all, I always bring this up. I say, what do most white people like to do during the summer? Go outside and get a tan.
Get a tan, yeah.
Yeah, I don't understand that. It's like they want to be dark, but they don't like Black people. And I'm not saying all white people are like that. I'm not saying it, but I'm saying
no.
There's a lot of great white people. Yeah, and I know you're saying that too. Yes.
White people love to Europe, love to the descendants of Europe. We are just talking about who Black people and who people of melanin and white people know who we're talking about too. Exactly. The white people listening to this interview know we are not talking about them. They know this. Mm-hmm. They know we're talking about just a small select group. Yeah. And this group is really just this way because people like me, over the course of history, people that look like me, bro, have come from how am I going to say this? Have come from lands that have had a lot of treasure, knowledge, and everything, knowing about the stars and astronomy and all of that. And Greece came into these lands of people like myself and darker and learned these things. The first one was Solon, 900 BC, Solon. He was the first Greek allowed to open a school after the Egyptians. But the Greeks had been learning since 1500 BC. Mm-hmm. And so the Greeks learned from the Egyptians. Now, ask yourself at this point, why then do they only teach me about the Greeks in school? Why is it Greek fraternities? Why is it the history of everything starts at Greece and then Egypt sort of removed? Because they don't want you to make the connection between people who look like me and people who are Grecian. Mm-hmm. Who still kind of look like me too, but they're more, you can see it's starting to look more. And then you have Alexander, who's really like, look, we're South Russian. Russia didn't exist back then, but we're Macedonian. We're not Grecian. We're not African. We're going to come in and, in fact, Alexander was the only one who really thought that he was part Egyptian. He thought, I have a right. He was saying he has a right to the Egyptian throne because his father was an Egyptian pharaoh, and his mother was magically impregnated by him. But that's a whole other story. So Africa there had to be a campaign against people that looked like me, started by Europeans in order to conquer what was in Africa. You see, you can't conquer your friend. You can't tell people, hey, people that look like him, they're like the ancient dudes who know about knowledge, and like they're like in, you know, like they're studying like Moses, and like if you go to Egypt, you'll see like representation. They can't see this, although you can go to Egypt and see people that look like me, right? You see them, they're standing. You see the Anunnaki, all of this, right? But they can't really say that, right? They have to say, hey, because you need to take what's from that land. Yep. You need to import it and say it's yours, right? So anyone that has to import something and say it's yours either has to kill every single living inhabitant of the person they're stealing from, and they can't do that. So then you have to form what's called propaganda. Propaganda says, hey, the person that looks like this is bad. Although the Bible says Jesus will come back with skin that is bronze or looking like it was brass burned in an oven, and hair like wool and white like wool, right? So a person like me is looking like me is coming back. Yet the Jesus they show you is a white guy, right? He's from England. He's a guy from England. And so this is what they're doing. So those people is who I'm talking about. The people who are continuing that, the people who are saying, hey, that must continue, that propaganda against people that look like Israel, against Israel saying he is Israel. There's a lot of that too against Israel, right? Israel is not really representing itself so well right now. I remove myself with affiliation from that. I'm ancient Israel. I'm the Israel of the ancients. This new Israel is breaking laws, in my opinion. You understand? They're breaking social laws by bombing everything. All right. I don't like that. If I was there, I would find something to do with the mind more. Okay, but I'm not going to get into that. You know, I think that there's always so that translated all the way through slavery, because they had to justify slavery too. They had to say black people are animals. We keep them as animals because they're animals, right? Not because they're human. You can't tell somebody that, because that wouldn't fly. People would be like, this is a man, we can't keep this. But that was once the whites started getting around the blacks in slavery and started hanging with them, then they realized, dude, you're not an animal. That's what bred the abolitionists. Oh my God, dude, they've been lying to us. You're not an animal. You're actually just like me. You're a man, you're a woman. You have feelings, you hurt, you laugh, you cry, you think, you have philosophy. You're not an animal. You're planning your escape. I mean, this is, right? You're not an animal, dude. This is what I would do. You're the best of us as well. So, okay, so that fell apart. But there are some who, because it fell apart and the Constitution was changed, still believe in what's called the Founders' Constitution, which says that all people other than land-owning white males are no rights, and the ones who have melanin are animals. They're less than 1/5 of a man.
Yeah.
They have their point. They want to say, you can't change our stuff. That's ugly. That's ugly. But they hit me with that. So I gotta take that blow, right? They hit me with that right cross. You can't change our stuff. This is our Constitution. We wrote this. This is how this country was founded.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, wow. Hard blow. But guess what? You cannot sustain a system where white people are beating and dominating black people. Mm-hmm. It's not going to work, right? It's unsustainable, because black people are going to rebel, or it's just going to be white people that are so dissatisfied with the inhumanity of this. You're always going to have a civil war every year. It's unsustainable because you had a civil war. Mm-hmm. So your Constitution is garbage. It's a garbage doc. It didn't work. Life tried. Great try, but it didn't work.
Well, no, I want to add to that because when people say, "Oh, well, it's the Constitution," I said, "Why do you think they have something called amendments?" Because there's so many things that didn't work in the Constitution. They had to keep amending what they found was incorrect or wrong.
Now you're talking. But you see, there are people who, back to music now, holding back certain numbers. I'm trying to put this in the most clear way I can. Certain numbers of society are being held back.
Yeah.
If you want to act like you don't know nothing about the Western Hemisphere slavery, you don't know anything about 400 years of free labor, you don't know anything about Jim Crow, and you don't know anything about 400 years of no education, and then suddenly 40 or 50, 60 years of education having a direct effect on people today, only having 50 years total of education versus the white man's 600 years of education, and rich white families saying 1,000 words to a white baby before it's 2 years old.
Yeah.
You think black people that spent 400 years in slavery have that many words to say to their black children? It's an unfair system, but yet it's treated with fairness, right? Why? Because now they've taught people that look like me to go out and work and to pull levers and push buttons and be in the military and okay. And so now you're okay. But is that really who we are? Well, we don't have time to figure out who we are anymore because we're so fast headlong on this run of trying to fit in and trying to be what it is that now, does the Italian have to go through that? Does the Irish go through that? Does anyone else go through that kind of thing? That's partially because none of them been in this kind of a slavery, but it's also partially because no one's at the helm trying to beat it out of their heads. When the Italian wants to study classical Italian, there's colleges all over the place for that. When you want to study the history of black people from the time Timbuktu or from the time of Ethiopia till now, you can't find a college in the world except for maybe Sevenaria will go through that. But you can't find a college in the world to teach these things. And so there is something going on. It's hard to see if you don't really think about it. White people don't have to think about it. They're not faced with anything why would an average white person even care about what I'm saying? They have to think about this. You get up every day, and if you want to be on drugs, then you're going to mess up your life. But if you want to go out there and get a nice haircut and get conservative and go out and get an education, you can go all the way to the top. You can do anything you want to. There is no holding you back. In fact, you can go to places where are proactive like that, like the South. You can be like you can go to places where they are proactive about it.
Yeah.
And you can also do that if you want to be a black person that cannot talk about the past, that cannot talk about reference social issues, that cannot reference anything, then you can be the most melanated person in the world. As long as you can put on a shirt, tie, and not speak anything about the past, you can go to the moon. Yep. But is that really fair that the Italian or the Irish or the Asian or some, get to remember their past, or 9/11, never forget, but yet never forget for real. This is 9/11, respect. But then you have black people with 400 years of whips and chains and all that. They have to forget. And then when they try to correlate it, like myself, to the music industry, it's a laugh. It's a joke. You're joking because look at all the black people that are in music.
Yeah.
It's just, they don't understand from the top that statement is crazy, because look at the division that black people have to face, and look at the robbery that faced, like there was a time where blacks were doing doo-wop and rock and roll. That was something that came out of like blacks and whites, but mostly blacks, right? Hear that beat? That's rock and roll. But you know what that is? That's the Baptist church.
Oh, yeah.
That's because that's where it started.
Well, that's what I was saying earlier. All these people that are racist, they don't realize the musicians they're listening to, they were inspired and influenced by these black musicians that came before them.
Yes, and but what happens is they're made ignorant by the white guys who love what the black people are creating. And they know what black people create. They're like, this is genius. But there are some white guys who are so darn intelligent because they studied all these things of the past. What I'm teaching in Sevenaria, they study that black is the lowest light, and white is the highest light. So they feel like this black stuff is the black light. Blues is from the black, it's the devil light. They used to call it race music. They used to call it race music, devil's music was rock and roll, because they feel like it comes from black, like black. They actually look at black people and equate them with the black formative light or the right hand path, the dark magic. So it doesn't matter what black people are doing, this is dark magic because they're black. Now, this is historic. This is like the Indians did this to some, in India did this to some, in Sri Lanka after a while. I mean, this happened.
Yeah.
And this is terrible that this has happened. But like the flag behind me, the dark colors on the bottom. And so they transferred this to human beings, which is horrible. Instead of making it just metaphysical, white is light, dark light, and then all the colors in between. They said, oh, you're black light, you must be on the bottom. So now we have, no matter what blacks do, you're playing the blues, oh, it's from the devil. And of course, what do you think after 100 years of calling black people the devil? What you think they're going to do? The same thing the Illuminati did. They're going to put as their symbol the devil. Robert Johnson's going to say, yes, I am the devil. But he knows he ain't talked to no devil. But he's saying, if you think this is the devil, then yes, I am. Then that's what it is, because it certainly ain't Christ, right? You're saying Christ is white. You're saying Christ is going to kill me, and I'm black, and I'm a sinner. And then he's saying the devil is who I am, but I know that the devil is not who I am, who you say the devil is. What I am is good. What I am is trying to make music. What I am is an artist. But you saying that this is the devil, okay, then I must be the devil. You see the logic? So Robert Johnson said he met the devil, but in real life, Robert Johnson met the angel. You see what I'm saying to you? So black people have been put in this pigeonhole of they are the devil, they're going to create the devil's music. Now today it's not anymore, because blacks aren't fighting for rights like they did in the 20th century. So it's cool to have black people more at it, like in an at ease situation. But in the 20th century, when I was growing up, black people were still fighting for rights openly, still had the energy to do it. But there was a group on top that I'm talking about, not the audience, because the audience always screamed. You turn on those black and white videos, those people are screaming, for little. Yeah. There was a group on top that couldn't stand that way that looked, because in their own house they turned around and their daughter was on, their son was on the edge of the couch, and they were like, wait a minute, this is true talk, this is real talk. And people with money said, click, click, click. Mr. TV producer, you play that one more time, I'm pulling all my money out of your stocks. And then they said, well, we need to play this. This is, the kids love it. And then they said, well, I have an idea. My son keeps singing this stupid song all day. He's singing it. Have him record a version of it. And there you start the white guy. You don't start it, because before that were minstrels. Blackface minstrels. White guys were not allowed to perform as white people back then. They didn't choose to wear those black faces. They weren't imitating black people. That was demand that you had to do that, because that's what really it is. That's where it's really coming from. It was like an homage. White guys can't play this music. It's silly. Put on a black face, because that's really where it comes from. Now we can accept you playing this. You see where blackface comes from? White guys couldn't play it. But Elvis Presley became one of these type of dudes from the 30s and 40s and 50s, became the first dudes who would play black music without blackface now. That's really a white guy singing it, right?
Well, look what happened to Buddy Holly. When he went to the Apollo Theater, they thought he was black. They had no idea when they heard him on the radio that it was a white guy singing, and the reaction that he got was pretty much the same in the opposite way. They're like, whoa, what's this white guy doing here?
And this is what really, music is so harping on race. But it also had, yes, and Buddy Holly went through that because Buddy Holly was influenced by black tones.
Yes.
A lot of white people are influenced by the black tone of the black voice in those days. Not today anymore. I don't think it's like that at all. Because black people don't even come out to church like that anymore. Mm-hmm. And like Aretha Franklin and all these type of jazz and all that stuff, Satchmo and Billie Holiday. Black people ain't doing that stuff no more like that too much. But back then they were rocking that 24/7. And people who'd never heard that before were interested in, whoa, that's a different tone. That don't sound like a white guy. You definitely hear when it's a black person. They used to be able to hear it. In the 20th century, you used to be able to hear it. And you can't hear it anymore. You used to be able to hear it. And it was so different. And it was starting, it's beautiful. And can't blame people for wanting to imitate something beautiful. Imitation is the greatest form of flattery. You know what I mean? And so you can't blame people for doing this. It's unfair to blame. We would just say that what was unfair was the money that came into it that said, play this, but not this. And this is what affected us, I think, me, back to what we're talking about, because we had to go deep into that rabbit hole to explain this and come back out with it. This is what really affected even until today. That there's still those money powers. And when they were 30 and 40 back then, they're 80 and 90 when I come. And they're like, dude, here comes another one of those rebel street guys. Let's, talking about some Rasta black perspective. It's cool, but let's not really, that's not what we're broadcasting. We'd rather have Eddie Vedder singing about Jeremy Smoking Class today, which is a song about someone getting up and shooting someone in school.
Mm-hmm.
And they couldn't play Rise, bro.
No, and that's such an uplifting song. I don't understand it. So what happened though with Epic? You got signed, they loved you. Did new management come in that said, all right, I have this new attitude. I don't want this. We're going to drop Bad Brains from the label. Is that what happened?
No, not at all.
Okay.
We were doing fine. It was awesome. And okay, this is from my perspective. Okay, there may be someone out there who's laughing at this when they hear it and being like, "You don't have it on the real deal," but whatever. I don't care. Tell me the real deal, But this is from my perspective.
You lived through it, so you're telling us. Yeah.
It's from my perspective. We were doing great, and we started writing the second record. And we were about 7 songs in. When you say 5 or 7, which means the last 2 are like sketches, but we definitely had 5 solid tunes, 7, right? And on the second record, because Rise had gone through you're not HR, it's not as heavy as the Brains, or it's different than the Brains, excuse me. Whoa. When you get that gas stuck in your chest.
Do you need some water? Do you need to take a break?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm good. So after going through the period of that whole deal about comparisons with HR, I decided the second record, I'm going to sing more like I did for my other hardcore band, which was more louder and aggressive, okay? And so we wrote some good songs, and we all thought they were good songs. One of the songs was named Killer. I wrote all the lyrics. Now, there's a band called The Killers, right?
Yeah.
They came out after this song, man, like the mid-90s, late 90s. But we wrote this song called Killer in 95. And it's like, it's like one of those, like, Bad Brains type of, like, real, like, rock and joint. And the vocals are like, look at the beggars on the streets of fame, laughing at children who don't understand that sometimes it's simply just a matter of conviction under violent conditions. And it was like, I will. We're singing a song. And Daryl says to me, he doesn't like the lyrics. And I said, okay. And he goes, I don't want to, record this song. killer. So just to back up a little bit, there was some cracks in the veneer because of money starting to develop between me and the management. And I thought I wasn't getting enough information, and that there was more money circulating that than was being talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And most people feel like that, right? And so I just felt like, not to get too deep into it, because I can say a lot of stuff that's like, why are you saying that? So I'm choosing my words carefully. I felt like I wasn't being treated fairly. And so by management, not by players.
Yeah.
I just want to make that differentiation, okay? And so I was already thinking, man, this is not right. But when my artistry started getting called out and changes, today it wouldn't hit me like that, but at that point in my life, it hit me different. Mm-hmm. And I felt, can't tell me what to sing, man. This is all I have left. I'm not being paid properly. I'm already HR's clone, right?
Yeah.
Now you're gonna tell, like, not on purpose, but this is what the evil ones are trying to say, right? I know I'm not HR's clone, right? I'm not. First of all, I can never be HR. HR is dope. Yeah. I'm dope in my own way. But man, like, now I can't even sing what I wrote. Like, this is what I wrote, man. And so that just hit me differently. So I said, you know what? I'm out.
Okay.
I said, one day, it was the Grammys was on in 95, the Grammys of 1995. Couldn't have been 94 unless it was the end of 94, but it's 95. Maybe it was 94. But I called up Doc one night, and we just had a talk, and man, it was just like the energies were not right because of the situation, man. And I just said to him, look, Doc, I can't do this no more. I don't want to do this anymore. And I don't feel like I'm. And then I had a few more conversations with management, and that was it.
Okay.
I walked away, and I said, you know what? And then they had back to 89. I mean, back to 90, 91, 92. And so Adam Yout from Beastie Boys came and said to them, and I was still in contact with them. There was no issues. I didn't leave like, no, F you. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. It was just like, dude, you know what I mean? Like, come on, man. Like, help me out, figure this out. Y'all, you can't help me figure this out. Then, it's too frustrating. I don't want to be doing this. Big choice to make off such little things, right? But hey, it's what it is, what a 21-year-old kid does. But I was still friends with them, and I was there through the process when HR was coming back. I heard that what was happening with Maverick, and I heard that HR was coming back, and I was like, yeah, that's dope. Y'all are gonna really do a dope record. And I went over to Anthony County's house, and Daryl was there when we listened to God of Love together. Yep. And I heard God and love, God and love. And I thought, wow, it's different, It sounds so different than what they were doing before, and it's so different in attitude and I thought, well, that's what's going on. They did another record. I'm out. Yeah. And I thought this was a nice journey. And it ended like that movie. It ended definitely where I just went back to playing small clubs. Mm-hmm. And it took 20 years to get that sauce, you understand? And the sauce got out on Rise. That was 20 years of a man soaking up his life, and then getting on the mic and rocking like I was a man with wisdom. I was a 20-year-old kid talking like a man with wisdom, looking like a man that had learned the secrets of Hermes. You know what I mean? Talking a man that learned the principles of Ma'at and all that stuff. I mean, I had heard about these things, but I had perused these things. I had been interested in these things, but I was still a formative little kid, running around.
Yeah.
So I went back to doing what I was doing before.
Before we get into what was next, because you have a lot of things that you did post Bad Brains, there's two things about the Bad Brains I learned from you, and I found it so interesting. One was, why, in your words, did the Bad Brains play their songs fast? I love your answer.
Yeah. That's Daryl's answer. I got Daryl, Jennifer.
Yeah.
We don't talk much, but brother, you know we love each other, man. And I love you, man. And this story you told me of many stories. I got to tell you the story how Daryl got his superpowers when he dipped his hand in a liquid at work at 16. They said he wasn't supposed to dip his hand in, and he took it out. It was glowing. I tell you that story is crazy. He said, "Man, you don't know Israel. They told us not to put our hands in the water, bro. It was like chemicals." He's like, "I couldn't resist, man." He's like, "I took it out. It was glowing, like shimmering." Daryl's an interesting guy. He is one of the greatest Americans that ever lived, bro.
Yeah.
And I wish he got more props as a dude that is like who he is. But that's the way it is for the greats, man. They're always behind the scenes. But all right, so he explained to me, here goes the official story, y'all. Bad Brains, official story from DJ Daryl Jennifer, told you via Israel of why and how the Bad Brains songs got so fast and how they. So Daryl said to me one day, we were sitting around and he was talking to me about the history of Bad Brains because we just got together, you know, and he was telling me he was excited to talk to me about past times, and I was excited to ask questions and learn. And I said, man, but how, man, how, bro? How did you, in the middle of write Pay to Come, bro? How did you write these songs? What made y'all go 100 miles an hour? Like, what is that? That's like so out of left field. And it is. Attitude is the blueprint of, in my opinion, hardcore, metal, Metallica, all that stuff, in my opinion, came out of this yellow cassette. Whether they want to admit it or not, it just influenced the right people. Maybe they didn't even know about it, but it just influenced the right people, yo. And because there was nothing before this, right? You listened before, there's nothing. You can search high and low. There's nothing that sounds like the Attitude record, right? And everything, there's a lot of stuff that sounds like that afterwards. So what are you gonna do? Not credit it? So I said, man, how did you do that? So he said to me, all right, Israel. Israel. He was like saying my name and laughing. He's funny, man. Yeah, Israel. Like he expected like a Israel to come sing with his band, like cross that on. It's like weird. So we're like, Israel, listen, man. He said, this is how we got fast. He said, you know that song, Pay to Come? He said, listen, man, Pay to Come, all of our songs were written because we like punk rock music, man. There was no hardcore, man. Hardcore is something that they call our music. He said, our music is, we are punk rockers, bro. And he said, I said, but come on, man, that's hardcore. He said, let me explain that. He said, you got to know what, and he must, I think about it as a man, you know, he must have been thinking how ignorant I was. At this point, he must have thought, wow, you're completely green, dude. You're greener than any leaf in the summer, in the middle of spring. God, you don't know any of this? He said, all right, this is how it happened, bro. He said, we're a punk rock band. Pay to Come does not go, I'm excited. It's not that. It goes, when we wrote that song, it was what make decision with precision, chapter status, make a listen, what the seed is perfectly my fantasy. He told me that's how it was, like that's what we wrote. But all in time. And he said it was even probably slower than that. He said, that's how we played all of our songs in the beginning, bro. And he said, when we started playing clubs, they gave us 20 minutes. And Daryl is a prolific writer. He got like 25 songs, right? He's 14 years old, 15 years old. He got 20 minutes. He said, man, listen, bro, we got to play all our dope stuff, man. 20 minutes. We got like 10 songs and he gives. So he was a genius, man. He tapped into something that happened in black music. that doesn't happen again, and I don't think ever happened in what used to be called white music in the 20th century, which was when the performers showed up live, they played the song super fast. Mm-hmm. You don't see white performers doing that too much. And it happened to white performers in the 70s because of this strange thing that came out of the Baptist church again. Mm-hmm. Baptist music is inevitably played with a high beat. It's inevitably going like that. But really the song is, and the Lord, ding, 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 ding. And then I say the Lord, and by the end of that, the whole church is going crazy. That's Baptist progression.
Yes.
So James Brown would get on stage, and instead of going, get up, get on up, get up, get on up like a sex machine, he would go, get up, get on up, get up, get on up, stay on scene, get on up, sex machine, get on up, and it was like, wow. You're going crazy, and it's just that right tempo. If you're a little faster, you're gonna mess it up. You're a little slower, it's too dragging. And man, that is the joint, because it ain't slow like the record. And James Brown would get up and play all his hits at 100 miles an hour. Look at those old tapes. Look at those old tapes. He'd be dancing, and Daryl tapped into that. Yeah. The genius of Daryl Jennifer said, we're going to have to play our songs faster. And he was a young genius. And so if you turn a record up to 45, that's supposed to be 33, it's going to end half the time faster, right? It's going to end in 1:45 as opposed to 3 minutes, right? Or 2 minutes. And he understood this concept clearly. And so now, Peter Combs' beat never changes. Earl is playing the same thing. He's playing the same thing. Yep. That's what he's doing on the drums. That's what all those Bad Brains records are written on, the punk rock beat. And Daryl going, when you play with Daryl, you get a face like that, man. He'll be doing that to you, like, don't miss this. He knows what he wants, but he's an artist. Yeah. And he drives it with his mental energy. He's got a lot of Libra, and he's a Libra, And that force is coming down, he's got a big triangle on his head, man. And that force is pouring into him, bro. And he lets that Libra energy go on stage. And so he was the one who came up as a genius with the idea of playing your songs two times fast. And so they would show up to shows now. And they got there, and the punk rock kids was like, I'm gonna be the motherfuckers poking, right? And then Bad Brains comes on, and they're like, and so the pogo goes, instead of pogoing, they're going, they're trying to keep up with it, and all of a sudden now they're all knocking into each other, and they're like, and guess what that is? That's the slam dance. That's where that comes from. And the Rastas used to come see the Brains because they trained in the Rasta camp before they were known, man. They was 82, they were homeless. They had to stay up in the 12 tribes, and the 12 tribes had them playing reggae. It's 4 a.m, Daryl told me, man. Like, same bass line for a whole hour. 4 singers had to come and sing on this bass line, 12 songs each, And he said, man, they were schooled. So Rastas would come to the early Bad Brain shows. And, Rastas dance shaking their locks. They like shaking their hands, and they got a powerful dance they do. It's a spirit dance. You've seen Bob Marley do that dance. Imagine Bob Marley dancing in the middle of a show and a bunch of people dancing like that together. That's the slam. That's called mosh it up. Rasta say, yo, you mashing it up. Like in English, in American English, you'd be like, yo, you mashed it up, G. But in yard talk or Caribbean, mash is not mash, it's the English version from England, mush. You mushed it up. You really, and so when, yes, you really mushed up, you know. And so when you say
Some
mush,
tea and some like do a little mashing, and you have some tea
and
afterwards.
mushing, and so HR is yelling on the mic, mash it up, when he's like 19, you know, in those little clubs. But he's with his little English holdover accent yelling, mash it up, mash it up. And so people thought he's saying a new word, mush. And so it sounds like marsh, like marshmallow. But it's not a new, it's M-A-S-H with the English accent. And so it became a word. So they literally invented that. And so we're talking about, you know, Daryl and the HR, Doc, and Earl literally creating in music as Black disenfranchised people, the music that will be played for the next 30 years. And, you know, I just thought this was a remarkable thing, man. But then you go back and you hear there's a band called Death before them.
Yes.
They didn't even know about. So it's like the universe hammering its way in. Okay, if you didn't take Death, you're going to take Bad Brains. You know, the universe wants this to happen. Death is an interesting thing. They sent their demo tape in 1971 or 72 to 22 record labels.
Wow.
Before anyone sounded like that. Now you listen to Freaking Out. You know, it's so skater rock, you know, like all like and nobody was sounding like that. And here they go, sent out 22 record labels. Wow. And 3 years later, everybody sounded like that. So what are you gonna do? You know, they never got signed, nobody ever heard of them. But then all of a sudden you got bands coming out by the earload that sounds like you know, it sounds like this demo that wouldn't resurface until 30 years later.
Yeah.
So it's something that's like, wow, what's really going on? But I think that the crowd is not involved in that. There's a upper level that is yet to be known about. Some people say it's the Illuminati, but I don't think it's the Illuminati, right? I did subscribe to that for a second. Yeah. I did a whole album called Deeper Meaning when I was first really alerted to all of that. And that album really just started being for me to understand what I was encountering. Mm-hmm. I always write stuff down. I have loads of notebooks of notes. And Deeper Meaning came out of that. All those raps are about what in 2008 was being presented on YouTube as the Illuminati. Mm-hmm. And the Council on Foreign Relations and the whole Unum Sanctum and all, you know, this was hitting me like a load of bricks. So I wrote this whole album. But I don't think it's the Illuminati anymore. In fact, I've come to understand the Illuminati in a different way, that people have to understand that there are many levels of that organization, and there are many levels of the Freemasons.
Yeah.
And there's an internal fraternity in the external fraternity that does something different than the external fraternity. Mm-hmm. The external fraternity in their robes and clothing and all that pledging, what they're doing is actually, they have 1,000 years ago, Adam Weishaupt was 400 years ago, but before him was the Freemasons and the Masons. They decided that the world needed governors, that we were all children lost with no law when we came out of the womb. And if we didn't train a man, he would grow up to be a savage. He would grow up to beat people and steal and all. And that, so the world needed permanent parents, someone who would never die. And that's impossible. So what you have to do is form a group of people who would take over after you to be the permanent guides of the world. that would ensure education was always public, that it was never private. Because the royal families kept education private, and the church kept education private. If you weren't a Catholic member or a royal family member, you were dumb. You couldn't learn to read or write. Now, the Illuminati fought that. They were the ones who preserved education and opened public schools. So we have to thank them for that, right? Yeah. We have to thank them that they kept knowledge about the past, that the Catholic Church was trying to kill people and did kill people for, like the earth going around the sun. Now the Catholic Church agrees. But when Bruno brought that to them, they burned them at the stake. They were literally killing people for truth that was known by the ancients, but they knew it was true. That's why they were killing people, because they had a game to protect. They had a franchise to protect. They had a belief to protect. They had their truth to protect.
Yeah.
But the real truth they knew was being studied. People, syncretists, great syncretists knew this truth, these truths. So, you know, I think that, anyway, I think I went a little far afield, but I'm just basically just trying to say that, you know, I come from a standpoint of knowledge of self.
Yeah.
And yeah, so, and that equals out to albums like Deeper Meaning, which, you know, that's after Bad Brains and stuff, but, you know.
We're going to get to that too. But no, I am really enjoying this conversation. Like I said, doing my research and talking with you is like a history lesson. I'm learning so much. I mean, I've heard of the Illuminati. I really didn't know a lot about them, about different things that they show on YouTube. It's always the conspiracy theories and things like that. But you're telling me exactly what they were doing, and it wasn't all crazy. It wasn't all bad. They were actually trying to enlighten people and give them education. So I'm enjoying this. And I love when you go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, and fight the, man, I got rabbits, don't I? My God, I got rabbits coming out the hat. But
even Alice in Wonderland said, "I'm not going that deep."
She sure did. I left her at the corner. She's high. But no. But look, there's the external order, okay, and that is what they're doing. They want to preserve education. They want that people are not stupid, and this is a good thing. I praise them for this, okay. But there's an internal order.
Yeah,
this is what we got to talk about. This is where you get freaky deaky. They had, and I'll tell you, there's a reason they get freaky deaky. They tell you about the blood rituals and the sex rituals. Look, people, I am not condoning that. That's not Israel. I don't eat meat. I don't touch blood. I don't do violence. Mm-hmm. Don't push up on a brother, though. But I'm kidding. I'm joking, man. I'm a pacifist. I don't do violence and I don't eat blood. But I'll tell you some history. In these secret societies, the Catholic Church and many organizations before them, 500 years ago, was persecuting these people for knowing this knowledge, okay? And this is the truth. You can look this up. They once taught this in school. It was called the Inquisition, Spanish Inquisition.
Oh, yeah.
Inquisitions, okay? And they would burn people at the stake for not confessing Jesus Christ or believing in the Catholic Church, not Jesus Christ wrong, but Pope. Some people wasn't down with that. Can you imagine? I mean, hey, respect to the Pope, but I'm not a Catholic, right? I used to be. I renounced that as a child. I don't know what made me do that, but at 9, 10 years old, I was like, I'm done. Peace. I'm not going back there. It's cool, though. I respect them, but I'm not that. I would be killed. I would be killed. So people like myself said, well, that ain't right. And we know long-term that ain't right. So we got to do something to protect this. So there were people on the outside who said, okay, we'll just do good works. They can't blame us for that. We'll confess Christ and do good works. So this is the outside ring. Mm-hmm. Costumes, they're wearing their blue, they're in the Majesty Hall. This is supposed to represent the kingdom of Christ. When you're together and your mind is sound, this is what you get. You get to live like this. So come on, people, get together and get mind sound, and your house too will look like this. This is really what the Mason's supposed to be representing.
Yeah. But
there's an inner circle. And this inner circle is like, dude, all that's cool, but we don't want to be hiding from the Catholic Church. Mm-hmm. and become ignorant of what we're really talking about. So we need a second circle, because what we're really talking about is not good works. What we're talking about is the inner path way inside the self to find yourself and to become the self-propelled fountain that delivers knowledge and wisdom from within without even having to be taught, because we understand there's something akin to an Akashic record that we can tap into. And this church is not teaching us that. This church is telling us, confess Christ, come here, confess your sins. I'll smack you around a little bit, go home, and you're okay.
Yeah.
Not cool.
No.
They want not cool. They want to know what is God within, because the same church that's telling you to come here, pay money, confess your sins, smack you around a little bit, and send you home, it's hiding that Jesus says the kingdom of God is within you.
Mm-hmm.
Point blank. He didn't say, look up, it's up in the sky. He didn't say it's coming from this. He said it's inside of you. He was a total syncretist. He knew that God and man are one. He said, I and the Father are one. You see me. You see the Father. Why is that? Because the Father is an idea, it's a word, it's a being, it's a feeling, it's an emotion, it's a way of being, it's empathy. And when I open my mouth, that's what you hear. So if you are hearing that, I'm obviously not the devil. I'm obviously not man, because man don't be dealing with that. I'm obviously the Father. So when you see me, you see the Father. But I'm not saying I'm the Father. But I'm saying, look how the Father's using me like a puppet. Look at what I'm saying. Look at what I'm talking about. Is this normal? Yeah. So the Freemasons knew this was happening, but the church was, if they didn't like this outward ring, they certainly hated this middle ring. They were like, there is nothing outside of Mother Church Catholic. If you go for this inner self, Buddhist type, Hindu, we're going to kill you. Yeah. Right? And they do that today still. That's still what people think. We're going to kill you. Yeah. But people were like, we don't care because Christ was what you're saying. So we're going to be Christ. We're not going to be Pauline. So they had to invent ways to keep people out who were Catholic infiltrators and snitches. Hear me, people. I don't agree with the nastiness, but this is what they had to do to keep, at least for a little while, because after a while, then the snitches were like, well, we got to do this. And they got in, and then the whole thing was done. Yep. But for a while, what those nasty rituals did was kept the snitches of the Catholic Church out, because they really wouldn't drink blood. Yep. They wouldn't do the rituals. So then they wouldn't do the rituals, you can't get in. So if you can't get in, you can't hear what we're saying. You understand? It's not a want to do these things. It was forced upon them to have to make it so heavily selective that they were talking about blood rituals, right? And this is ancient, back to the pyramids, people were doing this, because it was always illegal to have this knowledge. But so there were sacrifices and blood rituals before you could get into the inner circle. But once you got in the inner circle, you were told what you did was evil. And now you have to shed all that because you're gross. You did that. You ate poop. Dummy. You really did that. But okay, you're here. And we all ate poop. I didn't eat poop, people.
I know.
I never did that. I never did that.
First step, go brush your teeth. Once you into the inner circle. Get some mouthwash for Israel.
Exactly. I did not do that. Okay. But I'm just making an example too. I'm not saying specifically that people that did that. I am making an example of something that would be odd for someone to do. Yep. Right. Well, and that would be an odd ritual.
No, what's funny, I'm glad you brought this up, because I always thought the hardcore Catholicism was so judgmental, and if it's not my way, it's the highway. And that's why I read an interview years ago with the Dalai Lama, and I was so impressed with what he said. I started going to a Buddhist temple, and I loved how, I'll give you an example. Like I went to a Catholic, I grew up Protestant, so we went to a Catholic church to on a field trip to see what they were like. They passed around the bowl to take money, the collection plate, and then they said, we didn't get as much as we were hoping. We're gonna pass it around again. I started laughing. And they were
that
serious.
happens.
I went to the I went to the Buddhist temple. They said, you know what? There's a thing in the back. I don't even like talking about this. It's just if you feel comfortable putting money in there, it just really helps us keep the lights on in the temple, but don't feel any pressure. And I loved how non-judgmental they were and how they really didn't care about. I mean, maybe they do in some parts of it, but people I was talking with, they didn't care about money like the Catholics did. Yeah. Like George, I'll go back to George Carlin really quick. He goes like this. He goes, God's all knowing, all loving, omniscient, but for some reason he just can't handle money. Always looking for money.
Handle money. No. It's a funny joke. It's a classic. But I'll tell you the truth about the Catholic Church and why that is. Okay. And I'll tell you, I like the Catholic Church. As I said, they had a lost moment. Yeah. They had a moment like the Germans, they had a lost moment there for a minute. They going a little crazy, but they're not like that anymore, right? They're nice people now. They're trying to be nice. I mean, all that wealth they got in Rome, they don't know how to redistribute that. I really think that's the problem. They don't know what to do with it. How do you redistribute gold? Tons and tons of pure gold. What are you going to do? Throw the entire world's economy out of kilter? You can't. So it's probably hard for them to distribute that gold, but they're trying to get it together. But in the old days, they had a problem. But the thing is I'm sorry, what did you mention? You mentioned something.
I was talking about the Buddhist temple.
The money. The thing is about the money is this, and I had to come to learn this because I too was under the impression, they're money hungry freaks.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's not really that. They just have a different approach to getting to heaven. The Catholics and a lot of people believe that the only way now I don't believe this, but the Catholics, for the most part, believe the only way you're going to get to heaven is by suffering. Come on, I don't need to say anymore. Put it together. Give me all your money, right? I mean, it's not that you want your money, but you're going to have to suffer to get to heaven. And that means give me your money. Give me a sacrifice. Yeah. Give it to the church. Give it to the church. And it doesn't matter what the church does with it. And it doesn't matter if you come in and see gold lining the church, makes you suffer that you see gold. Great. You're going to get to heaven because you see suffering. You see, suffering is a philosophy. The idea of suffering to get to something is not a philosophy I subscribe to, but it's something called Stoicism. And it came from a philosopher around the time of Socrates named Zeno, who came from Persia. And Zeno's philosophy of suffering was really a philosophy that they used to control the slaves. They would teach the slaves this philosophy to say, hey, there's a heaven for sufferers. And this is still around today. What I'm saying is going to shock a lot of people. This is going to be like earth shaking. People are going to wake up from the matrix when I'm saying this. Some people are going to awaken by this, and they're never going to be the same. So if you don't want to change, you need to fast forward right now and not listen to what I'm about to tell you. There are some people who still today believe the only way you're going to get to heaven is by suffering, because they believe that Jesus suffered. And so that's how he got to heaven, not knowing that he didn't suffer at all, in a sense that he was a manly suffering, that he didn't know what was happening. He purposely came to die. He purposely did sedition in the temple to cause trouble for himself, to be judged, to see if they would make him the king or to kill him. And that way his father would know how to judge in the Armageddon, whether we would be forgiven or be destroyed with fire. This is what he came to do. Had they said, you're the man, go be the king, then we would have been born into paradise right now. But they said, you're not the man, you're going to kill you. So Jesus did not suffer. So this is a false image they're portraying. So they teach you, you're supposed to suffer like Buddha. Buddha did not suffer. He was from an incredibly wealthy priestly family. He walked away from wealth and sat under a tree and gave up wealth. He was slumming.
Yeah.
He was slumming. They call that slumming today. Again, not suffering.
Yeah.
You see, this is what, but they have spun this, especially the Catholics. into a way of life. Suffering is the way to get heaven. You must be striped. You see them walking around with their crosses and they're being beaten even today because they honestly believe that by being poor, you see in the third world countries, I'm telling you, this is going to wake up people like it's the Matrix, man. You see in the third world countries how they accept poverty, how they accept that there's no education, how they accept military rule, how they accept authoritarians and living without water, some of them, not all, how in mostly Catholic countries, like look at Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico has been destroyed by consecutive storms, by consecutive disasters, and the people are happy. They're still going on with their lives. Look at Haiti. They're still going on with their lives. They're not, it's not, you know, this is because they have what is called a fatalist view. Fatalistic. This is fate. There's nothing you can do about it. And fatalism comes from what I was talking about before, Stoicism. You're stoic. Now, the first people to do that were the Elizabethans and the Germans. They became in the Age of Enlightenment Stoics, and they're still Stoic today. A lot of white culture in the Midwest and in Europe are Stoic. The Germans are Stoic. That's why there's not a lot of emotion shown in places in Europe. Italy didn't take that on so much, especially southern Italy. So you don't see Stoicism in southern Italy. But go to northern Italy, go to some parts of England, go to some parts of Germany, go to some parts of the Netherlands. They are not overly emotional and driven to, except if they are, then there's a special problem, right? There's something's wrong. And they do that here too. If you're over emotional, they put you on pills because it's all in an effort to lift up Zeno's philosophy of Stoicism, which is the way they controlled the slaves in Phoenicia, which is what they were attempting to do to the whole world, enslave the whole world. So in order to enslave the whole world, Stoicism had to be taught to all of us to accept your predicament. Accept that there's no money, accept the authoritarians are in charge, accept that there's no way to rise. My album, Rise, was telling you that there is a way to rise because I discovered that. I was one of those coming out of those countries that accepted the whole thing and had to wake up. Now, I woke up by grace. I woke up by grace. I woke up very early. No one taught me to wake up. I woke up by grace. I have to thank the creator for that he put this in my brain, but he also put this in it also put this in my brain to teach others, right? And so this Stoicism is the problem with most of the world that was conquered by Spain and Portugal. This Stoicism is the problem with most of the world that was conquered by Spain and Portugal. They taught the world to be stoic, to accept your predicament, to be fatalistic, and the only help for you is the Catholic Church and the Pope. And so you have people, billions of people in India, because the Portuguese were given Africa and the edges of South America and the edges of India. And the Spanish were given everything else on the globe. This is the Catholic bulls, the edicts. And so you have two worlds, both dealing with Stoicism, one dealing with a harder version, the other with a softer version. So we have to come out of what is really what Black people refer among themselves as the slave mentality.
Yeah.
Everyone, including white people, have the slave mentality. It's called Stoicism. It's the reason you don't go out and march. Not you, but it's the reason people on a whole don't protest and they accept their predicament because we've been taught Stoicism. So, these philosophies were abhorrent to people who want knowledge and who want to learn about things because they stunt you. They make you into a person who only knows how to be a robot, to work. And the word robot is a I think it's a Hungarian word that means slave,
Yep.
robot. And so they teach you to be a robot, to go hammer stuff, to go fix stuff, to go, but they never teach you to be a creator in the world of stuff. You can work in the world, but you can't create the world, nor can you know how the world works. And this is what I'm interested in. But you can't be a stoic, and you can't be a fatalist and be interested in this stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think that's, I mean, maybe the Catholic, I'm just using, we're talking about the Catholic Church right now, but I think they were probably afraid of people having knowledge and realizing that what they're learning, how they were learning that is wrong. Another thing I didn't like about the Catholic, the old school Roman Catholic, was the learning or the fear of God. God should not be fearful. God's all loving, all knowing. Like as I said, omniscient. He should be. You shouldn't be afraid of him. And the old Roman Catholics loved saying, "Oh, if you do this, you're going to hell. You're going to die. You're going to burn forever." It's like you shouldn't be, and that's why. I mean, I grew up Protestant, like I mentioned, and I used to always say it's like we're the Catholic religion without any of the guilt. It's like we believe in God, we believe in love, totally. But we didn't have to go to confession and say, "Well, I had an impure thought last week." All right, well, you're like, who are you to tell me? And that's why I think my personal opinion is why a couple years ago Catholic churches were closing down in record numbers, because I think people just said, you know what, I've I've evolved. I've learned a lot more. I'm more enlightened, and that's not really the way. And like I said, like we talked about, not everybody is bad. When you and I are talking, we're talking. I'm generalizing, but some of the people thought not all of them were like that.
Not all of them were like that.
Yeah, but I do believe that that the more enlightened you become and more educated you become, you're like realize it's like, well, you know what? There's a lot of that I don't agree with, and then you
well, you're in a keep in mind before I say what I'm going to say, I will say that some of the greatest minds in history were Catholics.
Yeah.
Some of the greatest minds, some of the greatest Western minds. Okay. Whoa. Rewind that back, people. I'm sorry I said it that way. All of you Asians and Indians and Africans, everybody, y'all great, man. All the great minds, the Muslims. What would Europe be without Islam and all? But what I'm saying is, in our modern era, some of the greatest minds after the Age of Enlightenment were Catholics, man. Martin Luther, Rousseau. You know what these people wrong with these people? They were racists. That's what was wrong with them. The Germans are amazing, methodical people that changed the world with their understanding of the ancient knowledge. They were the first to, you see, and you can't really say, oh, it's the Germans. Like I always say, they you got to credit the gathering and the gathered and who it was gathered from, because the Germans did not organically create all of history in Germany.
Yeah.
They got the history from the lands, the black lands, the brown and black lands of China and Asia and India, Africa, Ethiopia, Egypt, and all these places, and then Greece, then Rome, and took this information to Germany and laid it out on a table. I'm speaking proverbially, and studied. You understand? And this was something that was the first opportunity in the history of man to do. They just happened to get it. So it could have been maybe the Egyptians that had gotten it, or maybe the Indians. They would have been just as smart. But the Germans happened to be the ones that did it, because at that point, Rome was conquering, and Rome conquered Germany, and Martin Luther and these people inherited these documents from Rome and were able to translate these documents in Germany for the first time because of certain discoveries and certain records that were found that they could compare certain languages. And that was the first time that people saw that the Bible is not new, that it had been, that stories like this had been existing before. And Jesus, the idea of a dying God and all of that, and the sun and the great year, and that, they never saw all that. So Catholics came up with a lot of what we're talking about, but they were killed. because they knew it. So the Catholics became the Illuminati.
Mm-hmm.
Illuminati, and again, I'm not Illuminati, yo. Don't play me in the streets. Israel Joseph is not Illuminati, but I am illuminated. Yes.
Damn.
I am illuminated. I am enlightened. I am lightened from the inside. Yeah, I'm enlightened, but I am not Illuminati.
You are a Jah warrior. That's what you are.
Jah warrior. But the Illuminati is simply saying, if I could sit next to them on the bus for a second and plead their case, they're simply saying that, look, we are living in an age of darkness. And by preserving the knowledge of the past and the workings of planets and the sun and the effect of the natural condition upon us, by becoming materialists, we are helping humanity, because the part of us that was materialists are being killed by this present day Catholic Church.
Yes.
And by becoming materialists, we are illuminated, which luz is the Latin word for light. When you go to Spanish class, light is luz. Turn on the luz. Lucifer. Lucifer is the word for speaking and talking and understanding. So Lucifer really means those who speak under the light, or those who speak in the light, who are unafraid to speak.
Yep, and that became bad, and that became Satan, that became the devil.
And the greatest light, the greatest luz, is the sun. Those who speak in the light unafraidly about the power of the sun. Yep. Lucifer, you're Luciferian.
I love it.
Hey, hello, Plink here. Are you looking for some advice in love? Are you not sure how to build up your confidence? Do you still need to learn how to tie your shoes? Well, the doctor is in. That's right, Elmwood's own doc is here and in session. Look both ways before you cross the street. Don't be a racist piece of shit. Hey, if you're gonna get wet, always wear your rubbers. Brush your teeth at least twice a day. And wash your hands. So, are you looking for advice from someone with almost as much credibility as any other doctor on TV or the internet? Because now's your chance to get it. Email the doc at doc@elmwoodproductions.com, and if he uses your question, you'll get a really cool Elmwood t-shirt. Perfect for washing your car with or cleaning up spills in the kitchen. Don't forget, folks, the doctor can cure what ails ya.
The doctor isn't a real doctor of any kind. If you haven't figured that out already, you're beyond our assistance anyways.
That's true.
Got a real problem? Get a real doctor. That's no joke. Want to get some laughs? Come see the doc.
Yeah, right, Eugene. Anyway, make sure to include your mailing address with your questions so we know where to send the shirt. So email the doc at elmwoodproductions.com to make your life better.
You can't promise that kind of thing.
Yeah, this is the internet. We can do whatever we want.
Yes, and we are back.
What up? Yo, have you heard of Santos Bonacci yet?
No.
Oh man, he did great work about 10 years ago. He's still around, but he's not as focused as he was on the stuff 10 years ago. But he's really an awesome teacher as well. If you look at any of the YouTube videos from 6 years ago and before, like mostly like the ones like posted 9 years ago, dude, this dude is on fire. But this conversation reminds me of one of the conversations he has. We're very similar. He's got the same mind for the same kind of things. A little older, but he's dynamite. 9 years ago, he was on fire. He called up. Look, there's this one conversation. There's many of them. The greatest hits, the greatest of Santos Bonacci. There's so many, but one is really where I'm talking about like how he's on fire. He's just like, is one called Saturn. And it's, when you look it up on YouTube, it's a white picture with black lettering. It's a black like, someone just took like a black, it was Saturn, and it's like the lettering, Santos Bonacci said. If you listen to that, it's 2.5 hours, almost 3 hours of just brain. Like, this man is incredible. Like, would be a student, you know what I mean?
I have to check it out. What's his name
He's
again?
amazing. Bonacci, Santos Bonacci.
All right.
I had the pleasure of introducing myself to him on Facebook, and now we speak occasionally, and it's like, oh my God, it's amazing. But anyway, back to what I was saying. Are we ready to go?
Yep, let's do it. Let's start talking. So I never stopped recording. So like I said, we'll start right here.
Okay. So the whole Lucifer thing, and again, I'm just telling you as an educator, not as what I believe. I'm not preaching this to you.
Yes.
Lucifer is Lucifer, the light, the talking under the sun, talking in. And the whole thing about the goat in the five-pointed star, which is like, oh, that's devil, because you made me think of this when you said, oh, then they made that into the devil. I said, yes, they did. Goat. That's all is a joke that the Illuminati played on the Catholic Church, frightening them to say, oh, you think we're the devil? Yeah, we're scary. But that isn't really the devil. The ram, although it looks like, oh, it's the devil's head, it's, it's the horns of the God, the devil. Nowhere, first of all, in the Bible is the devil a ram. First point. Second point is, every time you see the ram in the Bible, they're talking about the age of Aries in 2000 BC and before, because the sun is going through the great age. We are going through a yearly, I'm going to do this for the people. We are going through a yearly calendar that is going, step on my lip. It's going clockwise. Is that clockwise to you?
Yes.
When you're looking at me? Going clockwise. So, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February, right? We're doing that.
Yes.
And it takes a year because that is the Earth. The sun is here and the Earth is literally going around, right? So it takes a year for the Earth to progress through. And the reason we're in Aquarius is because when we're in Aquarius, we can't see Aquarius. The sun is blocking it. Yeah. We changed to Pisces, now we can see Aquarius, but we can't see Pisces. When we changed to Aries, now we can see Aries and Pisces and Aquarius, but we can't see Aries. We can see Pisces and Aquarius. We can't see Aries. You see? So we're going around for a whole year, and the sun keeps blocking these signs. That's how we know we're changing months, also by the moon. So this is real stuff. This is not joke. This is really how we know what day it is. Yeah. How mankind knows everything. People think this is a joke. It's crazy. So the sun is going around and it's blocking these signs in the sky. So, I'm sorry, the place where the sun, now the flag behind me is talking about it too. The place where the sun begins the year is, like, for instance, the Jewish year is Passover, right? That's in March or April. A lot of holy years and holy days or holidays appear in March or April as the beginnings of stuff, right? Ah. Yes. And there's a reason for that. Because the sun, as it passes through these, through the year, clockwise, through these signs that's blocking from our vision, is either down here darker in the winter or up here brighter in the summer. When he's in Leo, he's mad bright. You can't even work, he's so hot. And he's all right north. When he's in Capricorn or Aquarius, he's all the way down south. You can't see him. He's barely making the horizon. He's not even warm. It's frozen, right? Aquarius is in control. The Capricorn, the signs of the winter. Then he moves back and he dominates them. That's good over evil. That's good over darkness. You see, light over darkness. He's the light of God. But they are a certain kind of light too. They are the light that helps him sleep. They're his darkness. The sun goes to sleep in the winter. they keep his darkness. They keep his room dark. Then they wake him up and send him back on his way. So they're not evil.
Yeah.
They're just doing the work. The sun needs to sleep. So people realized that there must be a midpoint, and they looked for it. And what they found in Egypt was called the equinoxes. Mm-hmm. When the days would shine equally 12 hours, 12 hours and 12 hours of darkness, 12 hours of sun, 12 hours of darkness, 12 hours of sun. And that happened twice a year. Once in March and once in September. And so they said, that's special. That's the beginning of the year. When the sun is coming in March, because not September, because it's going into winter. When it's coming in March, we know it's going to come back and bring all the beautiful stuff, the fruits, and it's going to be high in the sky and make us warm. That's the beginning of the year. It's also when it passes over the point that it is no more sinking past where you can't get any sun. It's passing over. So we have Passover. The sun is passing over, literally passing over the equator. Now, they celebrated this as the first of the year. The symbol that they gave this time of the year was an animal that ran up hills with no aid and stood on top of hills and fed on hills and lived on hillsides, called the ram. Same thing they call the Chevy truck today. Same thing because the ram is the creature that goes up to the, he's proud, he's got his curly sun, like the sun. And so they say, oh, when the sun is born, it's like those animals, those rams, isn't it? It's like a ram. And so they gave this time of year Aries, the ram. Mm-hmm. So just to talk about this one sign alone, the reason the Illuminati have a goat in the star symbol is not because they're devils, it's because they're telling you we are with Aries, the ram. We're like the rising sun. We're coming with knowledge. The sun rises in Aries. So it's not a goat. It's not a goat as much as it is a ram. So people might say, oh, but the ram's horns go down. Well, not when it's young. And if the age is just beginning, then the ram's horns are straight and small. I have photos of this. They then grow like this. So when he's in Leo, he will be like this, maybe, in their opinion.
Yeah.
But he's born with it. So they show you this straight-headed goat ram thing in the star because it is a star. Venus is the star. The star is leading the sun. When you go out in the morning, you see a bright star coming in and you see the sun. Mm-hmm. You don't see the sun before you see Venus. Venus is the star that leads the sun. She's also the star that leads the constellation at night because she has a very small orbit and it's harder to see Mercury. So the next one out we can see is Venus. Then it's us. We see her. She's the fastest one. So we see her morning and night. She's the morning star and the evening star. So the star around the goat's head is her, leading the goat. And the goat is the symbol for Aries. And the Aries is the symbol of the sun. So all that is the sun hiding it from the Catholic Church, because the Catholic Church don't want you worshiping the sun. At least outwardly.
Well, I have to say, I think after this interview, I am officially the valedictorian of Sevenaria University.
Blessed. Oh man, I didn't even mean to read that, but that's great. That's awesome.
No, I love this. Like I said, I am learning so much just listening to you, having such a fun conversation.
You are a valedictorian, man. Yes.
What was that?
You are a valedictorian of Sevenaria. Yes.
Well, thank you. I wish I had a speech ready. I wasn't prepared for this.
Now available in one collection. Confessions Crimes of a Frenetic Mind. 5 tales of blood-curdling terror. Available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
All of a sudden I hear, brim, brim. What's a diaphragm again?
Ha! We caught one.
They're supposed to be weird.
Oh, yeah, no. If you say so.
I've always wanted to be in a movie.
Waiting around for autumn, I was watching.